The soft murmur of Frank's voice drifted through the thin wall separating our bedrooms, and I almost dismissed it as another late-night phone call with his sister until I heard my name. Not just my name spoken with a tenderness that made my chest tighten in ways I wasn't prepared for. I pressed my ear closer to the wall, my heart hammering as I strained to make out his words. "Tyler doesn't know how I feel about him, Amelia," Frank whispered, and I realized with a jolt that he was talking to my cat. "I watch him every morning when he makes coffee, the way he hums under his breath when he thinks no one's listening. God, I wish I could tell him that sound is the best part of my day." If this story is hitting you in the feels, drop a heart in the comments. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this. I should have walked away. Should have given him privacy for whatever this was. But my feet remained planted against the hardwood floor, my entire body frozen as Frank continued his confession to the one living creature in our apartment who couldn't judge him for it. "He gets this little crease between his eyebrows when he's grading papers," Frank's voice carried on, soft and aching. "I want to smooth it away with my thumb. I want to tell him that his students are lucky to have someone who cares so much about whether they understand metaphors and symbolism. But I can't, can I? Because we're roommates, and roommates don't feel this way about each other." My breath caught in my throat. 8 months of shared grocery runs and movie nights, of Frank leaving my favorite coffee beans on the counter without being asked, of him staying up late to help me prep lesson plans when I was overwhelmed. Suddenly, every moment took on a different weight. Had I been blind to something that was right in front of me this entire time? "I love the way he talks to you," Frank continued, and I could hear the smile in his voice even through the wall. "He pretends to be annoyed when you choose my lap over his, but I see how gentle he is when he thinks I'm not looking. The way he scratches behind your ears and tells you about his day. I want him to talk to me like that. I want him to trust me with the parts of himself he keeps hidden." The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, hidden behind a wall, listening to Frank reveal the parts of himself he kept hidden. My legs felt weak, and I slid down to sit on the floor, my back against the wall that separated us. Amelia, the traitor, was probably curled up on Frank's chest right now, purring as he stroked her fur and poured his heart out to her. "Sometimes I catch him looking at me," Frank whispered, and my face burned with the truth of it. "Just for a second, like he's trying to figure something out. And I wonder if maybe, but no. Tyler's got his life together. He's got his teaching job and his books and his plans. He doesn't need some lovesick veterinarian complicating things." Lovesick. The word hit me like a physical blow, not because it was shocking, but because it was so achingly familiar. How many nights had I lain in bed, staring at the ceiling and wondering what it would feel like to cross the invisible line we'd drawn between friendship and something more? How many times had I caught myself watching Frank's hands as he prepared dinner, imagining what it would feel like to have those careful, gentle fingers touch me with the same tenderness he showed every injured animal that came through his clinic. "I keep thinking about that night 2 weeks ago," Frank continued, and I knew exactly which night he meant. The night we'd fallen asleep on the couch during a movie, and I'd woken up with my head on his shoulder, his arm around me like it belonged there. We both pretended it was nothing, just the natural result of exhaustion and a comfortable couch. But I'd felt the way his breathing changed when I stirred, the way his arm tightened around me for just a moment before he pulled away. "You were there, Amelia. You saw how perfect it felt. How right." And when he woke up and looked at me, God, for a second I thought maybe he felt it too. But then he pulled away and made some joke about hogging the couch, and I knew I'd imagined it. He hadn't imagined it. That moment had been replaying in my mind for 2 weeks, the memory of his warmth and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat under my cheek. I'd pulled away because the alternative, staying there and acknowledging what it meant, terrified me. What if I was reading too much into shared glances and comfortable silences? What if I ruined the best living situation I'd ever had by wanting more than Frank was willing to give? "I dream about him sometimes," Frank admitted, his voice barely audible now. Not just physical stuff, though God knows I think about that too. I dream about Sunday mornings where I don't have to pretend I'm not watching him read the paper, where I can kiss him good morning and tell him I love the way he argues with the crossword puzzle, where I can be honest about how much I care about him without worrying about making things weird. The word love hung in the air between us, separated only by drywall and my own cowardice. Frank loved me. Not just attraction or infatuation, but love. The kind of love that noticed small habits and wanted to build Sunday mornings around them. The kind of love that I'd been afraid to name in my own chest, even as it grew stronger with every shared meal and quiet evening. "I should probably stop talking to you about this," Frank said with a soft laugh that sounded more sad than amused. You're going to get tired of hearing about my pathetic crush on your dad. Your dad. As if I were some absent figure in Amelia's life instead of the man sleeping 10 feet away, separated by nothing but a wall and my own fear. I wanted to burst through that wall, to tell Frank that his feelings weren't pathetic, that I'd been fighting the same battle on the other side of our careful friendship. But my body remained frozen, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I just learned. Maybe someday I'll find the courage to tell him, Frank whispered. Maybe someday I'll risk everything for the chance that he might feel the same way. But not tonight. Tonight, I'll just tell you, and pretend that's enough. The silence that followed felt heavy with unspoken possibilities. I heard the soft sound of Frank shifting in bed, probably settling Amelia more comfortably against his chest. In a few minutes, he'd be asleep, and I'd be left alone with the knowledge that everything I thought I knew about our relationship was just the surface of something much deeper. I pressed my palm against the wall, wondering if Frank could somehow feel the gesture through the plaster and paint. Tomorrow, we'd make coffee and share the newspaper and pretend that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The careful distance I'd maintained, the walls I'd built to protect our friendship, Frank had just revealed that he'd been building the same walls for the same reasons. The question now was whether either of us would find the courage to tear them down. I pressed my back against my bedroom door, heart hammering so hard I'm certain Frank can hear it through the thin walls of our apartment. The words he just spoke to Amelia echo in my mind like a song I can't stop humming. I wish I could tell him how I feel about him. How I think about him when he's not around. How I dream about what it would be like if we were more than just roommates. 8 months. We've been living together for 8 months, and I never knew. I slide down the door until I'm sitting on my hardwood floor, staring at the wall that separates us. How did I miss this? How did I not see what was right in front of me? The apartment goes quiet next door, and I hear Frank's gentle voice saying goodnight to Amelia. His footsteps pad across his room, then the soft creak of his bed springs. I remain frozen on my floor, replaying every interaction we've had since he moved in last spring. Frank answered my Craigslist ad for a roommate when I was desperate to split the rent on this 2-bedroom place in Capitol Hill. I'd been burned by flaky roommates before, so I was skeptical when this guy showed up at my door looking like he'd stepped out of a veterinary calendar, tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and hands that looked like they could fix anything broken. He was too good to be true, I thought. There had to be a catch. But there wasn't. Frank paid his rent on time, kept the common areas clean, and never hogged the bathroom. He brought home leftover pastries from the coffee shop next to his veterinary clinic and left them on the kitchen counter with little notes. Thought you might like these. He asked about my day when I came home from teaching, actually listening to my complaints about standardized testing and helicopter parrots. When I got food poisoning from that sketchy Thai place, he brought me soup and ginger ale without being asked. The catch, it turned out, was that he was perfect. I think about our routine now with new eyes. Every morning, Frank gets up first and starts the coffee. By the time I stumble to the kitchen, there's a mug waiting for me, cream, no sugar, exactly how I like it. He never makes a big deal about it, just hands it to me with a sleepy smile and asks if I remembered to grade those essays I was complaining about the night before. We've fallen into this domestic rhythm that feels more natural than any relationship I've ever had. Frank cooks on weeknights because he gets home before me. I handle weekend meals because I actually enjoy experimenting with new recipes. We grocery shop together on Sundays, wandering through the produce section while Frank tells me stories about his patients, the diabetic cat whose owner brings him sugar-free treats, the parrot who learned to swear from a teenager and now shocks elderly clients. Movie nights happen without planning. One of us will collapse on the couch after a long day, and the other will join automatically. We've worked our way through entire seasons of shows, debating plot twists and character motivations like it matters. Frank gets invested in the most ridiculous reality TV, shouting at the screen when contestants make obvious mistakes. I pretend to find it annoying, but really I love watching his face light up. Love how he gets so passionate about things that don't matter at all. And Amelia. God, Amelia loves him more than she's ever loved me, and I adopted her as a kitten 3 years ago. She used to sleep on my bed every night, but now she spends most evenings curled up on Frank's lap while we watch TV. At first, I joked about it. She's clearly got better taste than I thought, but watching them together does something to my chest that I've been trying not to examine too closely. Frank has these incredibly gentle hands. I've watched him coax Amelia out from under the couch when she's scared, seen him carefully trim her claws while murmuring reassurances. He talks to her like she's a person, asking about her day, telling her about his. I thought it was just Frank being Frank, The kind of guy who probably talks to all animals like they're his best friends. I never imagined he was talking to her about me. 2 weeks ago, we fell asleep on the couch together during a late-night movie marathon. I woke up first, my head on Frank's shoulder, his arm around me like it belonged there. For a moment, I let myself enjoy it, the warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the way his fingers had somehow found their way into my hair. Then panic set in. I extracted myself carefully, shook Frank awake, and made some excuse about having early morning plans. He looked confused, maybe a little hurt, but he didn't push. He never pushes. That's when I started noticing things I'd been determinedly not seeing. The way Frank's eyes linger on me when he thinks I'm not looking. How he finds excuses to touch me, adjusting my collar when it's flipped up, brushing flour off my cheek when I'm baking, letting his hand rest on my shoulder just a beat too long when he's reading over my shoulder. I've been telling myself I'm imagining it, that I'm projecting my own confusing feelings onto our friendship. Because somewhere along the way, without meaning to, I started wanting more than Sunday grocery trips and shared Netflix passwords. I started wanting to wake up on that couch with Frank's arms around me and not feel like I had to run. But wanting and having are different things, and I've learned not to trust my instincts when it comes to reading men. I've been wrong before, catastrophically wrong, about guys who I thought might be interested. The mortification of misreading friendship as something more has kept me careful, kept me from risking what Frank and I have built together. Except now I know I wasn't imagining anything. Frank feels it too. Frank dreams about us being more than roommates. I hear him shifting in bed next door, and I wonder if he's lying awake thinking about what he said to Amelia. Does he regret it? Is he worried that I might have heard? I should go to bed. I should pretend this never happened, go back to our careful dance of almost touches and loaded glances. It would be safer. Easier. But I can't stop thinking about the longing in his voice when he told my cat that he wishes he could tell me how he feels. I sit on my bedroom floor for what feels like hours, replaying every moment from the past 8 months through this new lens. Frank's confession to Amelia echoes in my mind. Asterisk, I wish I could tell him how I feel. How much these little moments mean to me, asterisk. And suddenly every interaction we've shared takes on a different weight, a different meaning. The way Frank always saves me the last cup of coffee in the morning, even when he's running late for the clinic. I chalked it up to politeness, good roommate etiquette. But now I remember how he lingers in the kitchen while I drink it, asking about my lesson plans for the day, genuinely interested in whether my sophomore class is finally understanding metaphors. His eyes would light up when I'd get excited about a student's breakthrough, and he'd lean against the counter with this soft smile that I'd forced myself not to analyze too deeply. Those Sunday grocery trips that somehow became our tradition without either of us officially establishing it. Frank always insists on pushing the cart, and I've caught him adding things to our list that I mentioned wanting days earlier. The expensive olive oil I'd admired, the fancy cheese I'd said looked good but was too pricey. When I'd protest, he'd shrug and say something about splitting everything anyway, but I know he's been covering more than his share of our household expenses. I convinced myself he was just being generous, but now I wonder if there was more intention behind those gestures. The movie nights that started as casual suggestions but evolved into something we both protected fiercely. Frank always lets me choose, even though I know he'd rather watch documentaries than the romantic comedies I gravitate toward. But he never complains, never reaches for his phone, or seems bored. Instead, he'll make observations about the characters that show he's been paying attention, or he'll laugh at the parts that make me laugh, like my enjoyment is contagious. I think about 2 weeks ago when we both fell asleep on the couch during a particularly long film. I'd woken up first, finding myself pressed against Frank's side, his arm draped over my shoulders. For a moment, I'd let myself enjoy the warmth, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the way his hair fell across his forehead. But then panic had set in. What if he woke up and felt uncomfortable? What if I'd crossed a line by not moving away immediately? I'd carefully extracted myself and gone to bed, spending the rest of the night convincing myself it meant nothing. But Frank's words to Amelia suggest it meant something to him. These little moments mean everything to me. Now I'm hyper-aware of every detail I'd previously dismissed. The way Frank's hand sometimes brushes mine when we're cooking dinner together, and how he never pulls away immediately. How he remembers that I hate doing dishes and always volunteers to clean up after I cook. The way he asks about my day with genuine interest, not just polite conversation, and how he listens to my complaints about difficult students or administrative frustrations with the kind of attention usually reserved for close friends or something more. I think about his hands, those gentle, skilled hands that can calm a frightened animal or delicately suture a wound. I've watched him with Amelia countless times, the way he scratches behind her ears with just the right pressure, how he can make her purr within seconds. There's something mesmerizing about his touch, something that makes me wonder what those hands would feel like on my skin, in my hair, tracing the line of my jaw. The thought sends heat rushing through me, and I have to press my palms against my face to steady myself. This is dangerous territory, imagining Frank's touch, wondering if he thinks about me the way I'm suddenly realizing I think about him. Because I do think about him, more than I've allowed myself to acknowledge. When I wake up in the morning, I listen for sounds of him moving around the apartment. When I come home from work, I feel a little thrill of anticipation, wondering if he'll be there, if we'll end up cooking together or settling in for another evening of comfortable conversation. I've been so careful to maintain appropriate boundaries, to not read too much into our interactions. After my last relationship ended badly, after I'd misread signals and made assumptions that led to awkwardness and hurt feelings, I promised myself I'd be more cautious. I wouldn't project romantic feelings onto friendships. I wouldn't assume that kindness meant attraction, that compatibility meant romantic interest. But Frank's confession changes everything. He wasn't just being a good roommate or a considerate friend. He was caring for me the way someone cares for a person they love. I hear movement in the living room, Frank's voice, low and gentle, talking to Amelia again. My heart rate picks up, and I strain to listen, but I can't make out the words from here. Part of me wants to creep closer, to hear what else he might say, but another part of me knows I've already crossed a line by listening once. This is his private moment, his way of processing feelings he's not ready to share directly. But knowing that doesn't stop the questions racing through my mind. How long has he felt this way? Was there a specific moment when friendship shifted to something deeper for him? Or was it gradual like it seems to have been for me? Does he lie awake at night thinking about me the way I'm realizing I think about him? The uncertainty is almost unbearable. For 8 months, I've been living with someone who apparently loves me, and I've been too scared or too blind to see it. Too focused on protecting myself from potential rejection to notice that maybe, just maybe, my feelings weren't one-sided. I think about the way Frank looks at me sometimes, those moments when I'll catch him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Now I wonder if that was longing, if he was fighting the same internal battle I've been fighting, wanting to say something but not knowing how. The floorboards creak in the hallway, and I hear Frank's bedroom door close softly. The apartment settles into quiet, but my mind is anything but calm. I'm acutely aware that he's just 20 feet away, probably lying in bed thinking about the same things I'm thinking about, wanting the same things I'm starting to realize I want. This knowledge feels like holding something fragile and precious, Frank's feelings, his trust, even though he doesn't know I have it. It also feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that whatever I do next will change everything between us. I can't unknow what I know. I can't go back to casual roommate interactions when I've heard him confess his love to my cat. The question is, what do I do with this knowledge? How do I honor his feelings while being honest about my own? How do I find the courage to bridge the gap between what we are and what we could be? I lie in bed for what feels like hours, staring at the ceiling while my mind replays every interaction Frank and I have shared over the past 8 months. The weight of what I overheard settles deeper into my chest with each passing minute. He wishes he could tell me how he feels. The words echo in my head like a prayer I never knew I wanted to hear. I think about the morning routine we've fallen into, Frank always up first, the sound of the coffee maker greeting me before my alarm even goes off. When I stumble into the kitchen, there's always a mug waiting, prepared exactly how I like it. I used to think it was just Frank being considerate, the way he is with everyone. But now I wonder if those extra 30 seconds he takes to add the perfect amount of cream, the way he always makes sure my favorite mug is clean, if those small gestures carry the weight of everything he can't say. The grocery store trips on Sundays suddenly take on new meaning. Frank always suggests we go together, always remembers the things I forget to put on the list. Last week, he picked up the expensive olive oil I mentioned wanting to try but couldn't justify buying. When I protested, he just shrugged and said he wanted to try it too. I believed him then. Now I realize he probably doesn't even like olive oil. My chest tightens as I remember the way he looks at me sometimes, those moments when I catch him staring and he quickly looks away, a flush creeping up his neck. I always assumed he was just lost in thought, maybe thinking about work or some difficult case at the clinic. But what if he was thinking about me? What if those stolen glances were him trying to memorize something he thought he'd never be able to touch? The movie nights feel different in my memory now. Frank always lets me choose, always seems genuinely interested in whatever I pick, even the pretentious art films I know he finds boring. He sits just close enough that I can feel the warmth radiating from his body, but never close enough to seem intentional. Now I wonder if that careful distance was him holding himself back, maintaining the safe space between friendship and something more dangerous. I think about his hands, those gentle, skilled hands that can calm a frightened animal or stitch a wound with perfect precision. I've watched him with Amelia countless times, the way he strokes her fur with such tenderness, and I've felt something twist in my stomach that I refuse to name. Jealousy, maybe, or longing. The desire to know what those hands would feel like on my skin, moving with that same careful attention. 2 weeks ago, we fell asleep on the couch together during a late movie. I woke up with my head on his shoulder, his arm draped loosely around me, and for a moment before full consciousness returned, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. When I stirred, Frank woke too, and we separated with awkward apologies and nervous laughter. But I caught the look in his eyes before he turned away, soft and yearning, and quickly shuddered. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was projecting my own confused feelings onto him. But I wasn't imagining anything, was I? From down the hall, I hear Frank's voice again, low and intimate in the way that makes my heart race. I can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable, tender, vulnerable, full of longing. He's talking to Amelia again, and I know with absolute certainty that every word is meant for me. I slip out of bed, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The hallway stretches before me like a bridge I'm afraid to cross. Each step brings me closer to a truth I'm not sure I'm ready to face, but I can't stop myself. I need to hear this. I need to know. Frank's door is slightly ajar, just enough for me to see him sitting on his bed with Amelia curled in his lap. The lamp on his nightstand casts a warm glow across his face, highlighting the gentle curve of his smile as he scratches behind her ears. I made his coffee this morning, Frank says softly, his voice carrying easily through the quiet apartment. I always make it a little stronger than I think he likes, because he never complains, and I want him to know I'm paying attention. I want him to know that I notice everything about him. My breath catches in my throat. I press myself against the wall, hidden in the shadows of the hallway, my heart pounding so loud I'm afraid he'll hear it. He wore that blue sweater today, Frank continues, his fingers moving in slow, rhythmic strokes along Amelia's back. The one that makes his eyes look like the ocean. I wanted to tell him how beautiful he looked, but I just said good morning, like always. Like a coward. The word beautiful hits me like a physical blow. No one has ever called me beautiful before. Handsome, maybe. Cute, occasionally. But beautiful, that's something else entirely. That's something sacred. I dream about him sometimes, Frank admits, his voice barely above a whisper. Dreams where I can tell him everything I feel, where I can touch him the way I want to, where he looks at me like I'm not just his roommate, but someone he could love. I close my eyes, overwhelmed by the raw honesty in his voice. This is what I've been afraid of, this depth of feeling, this vulnerability that could destroy everything we've built together. But it's also what I've been craving without even knowing it. I know it's selfish, Frank says, and I can hear the pain creeping into his voice. I know I should probably move out, give him space to find someone who can love him properly. Someone who isn't afraid to take risks. But I can't bring myself to leave. These moments we share, making coffee, watching movies, just existing in the same space, they're the best parts of my day. Even if he never knows how I feel, even if I have to love him from a distance forever, I can't give this up. Tears sting my eyes. The idea of Frank leaving, of losing this connection we've built, makes my chest ache with a panic I didn't expect. How did I not see this before? How did I convince myself that what we have is just friendship when it's clearly so much more? I wish I was brave enough to tell him, Frank whispers, his voice breaking slightly. I wish I could just knock on his door right now and say, Tyler, I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you since the second month we lived together, when you got food poisoning, and I stayed up all night making sure you were okay. I love the way you hum when you're grading papers. I love how you always save me the last piece of pizza even when I know you want it. I love that you trust me with your cat, with your space, with the quiet moments that make up a life. My legs feel weak. I slide down the wall until I'm sitting on the floor, my back pressed against the cool surface, trying to process the magnitude of what I'm hearing. Frank loves me. Not just attracted to me, not just interested, he loves me. And I've been so busy protecting myself from the possibility of rejection that I never allowed myself to see it. But I can't risk losing what we have, Frank continues, his voice steadier now. I can't be the reason he feels uncomfortable in his own home. So I tell you instead, because you're the only one who won't judge me for being a fool. Amelia meows softly, and I hear Frank's quiet laugh. You think I should tell him, don't you? He says. You think I'm being ridiculous, hiding behind fear when I could be honest. But you don't understand. If he doesn't feel the same way, everything changes. And I'm not sure I'm strong enough to handle that change. I am frozen in the hallway, my heart breaking for both of us. Frank, carrying this love in secret, convinced that honesty will destroy what we have. And me, too afraid to examine my own feelings, too scarred by past mistakes to recognize something real when it's right in front of me. The silence stretches between us, separated by walls and fear and the weight of unspoken truth. I know I should move, should either go back to my room or find the courage to knock on his door. But I remain paralyzed, caught between the safety of ignorance and the terrifying possibility of everything I never knew I wanted. Then I hear movement from Frank's room, the soft sound of him shifting on the bed, Amelia's quiet protest as she's disturbed from her comfortable position. Footsteps approach the door, and I realize with growing panic that Frank is coming out of his room. I scramble to my feet, but it's too late. The door opens wider, and Frank steps into the hallway, probably heading to the kitchen for water or the bathroom. He freezes when he sees me standing there in the shadows, my face undoubtedly revealing everything I've heard. We stare at each other in the dim hallway light, the weight of his confession hanging between us like a bridge neither of us knows how to cross. His face cycles through a dozen emotions: surprise, embarrassment, fear, and something that might be hope. "Tyler," he whispers, my name a question and a prayer all at once. I open my mouth to speak, to explain, to apologize for listening, but no words come. We stand there in the charged silence, two men who have been dancing around the truth for months, finally face to face with everything we've been too afraid to say. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, both of us frozen in the hallway outside Frank's bedroom door. His face had gone pale when he realized I'd been listening, and I could see the mortification washing over him in waves. Amelia, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air, wound herself around Frank's legs and purred, as if she knew exactly what she'd accomplished. "Tyler," Frank started, then stopped, his voice catching. He ran a hand through his hair, the same gesture I'd watched him make countless times when he was nervous about a difficult case at the clinic. "God, I'm so sorry. I know how that must have sounded." The apology hit me like a physical blow. Here he was, trying to take back words that had been echoing in my mind for days, words that had made me see our entire relationship through a different lens. I thought about him making my coffee every morning, the way he'd pause sometimes when handing me the mug, like he wanted to say something more. I thought about how he'd insisted on taking care of Amelia when I'd been sick last month, how he'd checked on me every few hours with soup and worried eyes. "Don't," I said, the word coming out rougher than I intended. "Don't apologize for that." Frank's eyes widened slightly, and I saw something flicker across his face: hope, maybe, or confusion. He was still pressed against his bedroom door, like he was ready to retreat if I gave him any reason to run. "I've been thinking about what you said," I continued, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. "To Amelia. About wanting to tell me how you feel." The color drained from Frank's face completely. "Tyler, please. I know this is awkward. I can find another place to live. I don't want to make things weird between us." "Stop." The firmness in my own voice surprised me. "Just stop trying to run away from this." Frank's mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he was drowning, and I realized that for all his gentle confidence with animals, with patients, with everyone else in his life, he was just as terrified as I was in this moment. "I heard you," I said, taking a step closer. "2 weeks ago, when you thought I was asleep on the couch. And then again tonight. I heard you telling Amelia that you wished you could tell me how you felt." Frank's breathing had gone shallow, and I could see his hands trembling slightly where they hung at his sides. "I thought you were asleep," he whispered. "I was at first. But then I woke up and you were talking to her about us. About wanting more than what we have." I swallowed hard, feeling like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. "Frank, I need to know. Did you mean it? All of it?" He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the war playing out behind his eyes. The careful, considerate Frank who always put everyone else's comfort before his own was fighting with the man who'd been pouring his heart out to my cat for months. "Yes," he said finally, so quietly I almost missed it. Every word. The admission hung between us, raw and vulnerable. I could see how much it cost him to say it, how he was bracing himself for rejection. It made my chest ache, thinking about how long he'd been carrying this alone. "Why Amelia?" I asked, though I thought I already knew the answer. Frank's laugh was shaky, almost broken. "Because she listens without judgment. Because she can't tell you and ruin everything. Because when I talk to her, I can't pretend for a minute that you might actually want to hear what I have to say. But I do want to hear it, I said, taking another step closer. Frank, I've been listening. Not just tonight, but for months. I've been watching you make my coffee every morning like it's some kind of ritual. I've been noticing how you ask about my day like you actually care about the answer. I've been seeing how gentle you are with Amelia and thinking about. I stopped, heat flooding my cheeks. Frank was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Thinking about what? He asked softly. Thinking about what those hands would feel like on me instead of her, I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Thinking about whether you'd be that gentle with me. Thinking about whether you'd want to be. Frank's breath caught audibly. Tyler. I've been scared, I continued. The floodgates open now. Scared of ruining what we have. Scared of misreading the signals again. My last relationship ended because I thought there was something there that wasn't, and I couldn't handle going through that again. Especially not with you. Why especially not with me? The question was so quiet, so vulnerable, that it made my heart clench. I looked at him standing there in his rumpled t-shirt and pajama pants, hair mussed from sleep, eyes wide with something that looked like desperate hope. Because you matter too much, I said simply. Because losing you would break something in me that I don't think I could fix. Frank's eyes filled with tears, and he pressed his back harder against the door. You're not going to lose me. Tyler, you could never lose me. Even if you don't. Even if this isn't what you want, you're not going to lose me. But what if it is what I want? I asked, closing the distance between us until I was standing just a few feet away. What if I'd been wanting it for months but was too scared to admit it, even to myself? Frank's lips parted, and I could see him struggling to process what I was saying. Are you saying? I'm saying that when I heard you talking to Amelia about dreaming of me, about wanting to wake up next to me, about wishing you could tell me how you felt, I realized I've been dreaming about the same things. I've been wanting the same things. The tears that had been threatening spilled over, and Frank wiped at them with the back of his hand. I can't believe this is happening, he whispered. Frank, I said, reaching out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he wanted to. When he didn't, I touched his face gently, wiping away a tear with my thumb. I've been so stupid. All those mornings when you'd hand me coffee and our fingers would brush, and I'd feel this little spark, I thought I was imagining it. All those nights when we'd fall asleep on the couch together, and I'd wake up wanting to stay there forever, I thought it was just me. It wasn't just you, Frank said, leaning into my touch. God, Tyler, it was never just you. I've been falling for you since the second month we lived together. Maybe earlier. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was terrified, he admitted. Because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I couldn't stand the thought of losing you. Because I'd rather have you as a friend than not have you at all. I understood that fear completely. It was the same one that had kept me silent, that had made me pretend I didn't notice the way he looked at me sometimes, or the way my heart raced when he smiled. We're both idiots, I said, and Frank laughed, the sound watery but genuine. Complete idiots, he agreed. Amelia chose that moment to meow loudly, as if she was commenting on our conversation. We both looked down at her, and Frank shook his head. I think she's been trying to tell us something for months, he said. Smart cat, I murmured, still stroking his cheek. Frank, I want to try this. I want to try us. I'm scared as hell, but I want it. Are you sure? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because once we cross this line, I don't think I can go back to pretending I don't love you. The word hung between us, bigger than anything else he'd said. Love. He loved me. Then don't, I said, my voice steady despite the way my heart was racing. Don't pretend anymore. I don't want you to. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, both of us frozen in this moment that felt too fragile to breathe on. Frank's face had gone pale, his eyes wide with the mortification of being caught in his most vulnerable moment. I could see him preparing to retreat, to make some joke or excuse that would let us both pretend this never happened. Don't, I said quietly, the word coming out rougher than I intended. Don't apologize or try to explain it away. Frank's mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, but something in my voice must have stopped him from fleeing. Amelia, seemingly oblivious to the tension crackling between us, wound herself around Frank's legs with a satisfied purr. I've been listening, I admitted, my heart hammering against my ribs. Not just tonight. The other times too. When you thought I was asleep on the couch, when you were in the kitchen making coffee and talking to her while you waited for it to brew. I took a shaky breath. I heard you tell her you wished you could hold my hand during movies. I heard you say you dream about waking up next to me. Frank's face flushed crimson, and he pressed his back against the doorframe as if it could somehow swallow him whole. Tyler, I heard you tell her you love me, I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. 2 weeks ago, after we fell asleep together on the couch, you were stroking her fur, and you said you loved the way I looked when I was peaceful, that you wanted to protect that peace forever. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with 8 months of carefully maintained distance, of shared glances that lasted a heartbeat too long, of touches that lingered just past the boundaries of friendship. Frank's breathing had gone shallow, and I could see the pulse jumping in his throat. Every word you spoke to her, I said, taking a step closer, was meant for me, wasn't it? Frank's eyes closed, and for a moment I thought he might deny it, might try to salvage some shred of plausible deniability. But when he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears and something that looked like desperate hope. Yes, he whispered. Every single word. I've been falling in love with you since our 2nd month living together, when you got food poisoning, and I stayed up all night making sure you were okay. You were so grateful, so surprised that someone would take care of you like that. And I realized I wanted to take care of you for the rest of my life. My chest tightened with an emotion so intense it was almost painful. Frank. I know it's pathetic, he continued, the words tumbling out now like a dam had burst. Talking to your cat instead of having the courage to tell you directly. But I was so scared of losing what we have. These 8 months have been the happiest of my life, just living with you, sharing our routines, pretending I could be satisfied with friendship when every fiber of my being wants more. I reached out without thinking, my fingers brushing against his hand where it hung at his side. The contact sent electricity shooting up my arm, and I saw Frank's breath catch at the touch. You want to know something? I said, my voice unsteady. I've been terrified too. Terrified of wanting something I thought I couldn't have. Terrified of misreading the signals again, of destroying the best thing in my life by asking for more. Frank's fingers curled around mine, tentative but desperate. What signals? The way you save me the last cup of coffee even when you're running late for work. The way you remember that I hate the sound of the morning news and always have music playing instead. The way you look at me sometimes when you think I'm not paying attention, like I'm something precious you're afraid to touch. His thumb traced across my knuckles, and I felt something inside me crack open, all the careful walls I'd built around my heart crumbling at the simple touch. I've been dreaming about your hands, I admitted, my cheeks burning. Watching you with Amelia, seeing how gentle you are with her, and imagining what it would feel like to have you touch me like that. With that same tenderness, that same care. Frank's free hand came up to cup my face, his palm warm against my cheek. Tyler, I've wanted to touch you like this for months. I've wanted to tell you how beautiful you are when you're grading papers at the kitchen table, how my heart stops every time you laugh at something stupid I say, how I lie awake at night thinking about what it would be like to kiss you. Then why didn't you? I whispered, leaning into his touch. Because I was a coward, he said simply. Because I convinced myself that having you as a friend was better than risking everything for something that might not be real. But talking to Amelia made it feel safer somehow. I could say all the things I wanted to say to you without the fear of rejection, without the risk of making things awkward between us. I turned my head slightly, pressing a soft kiss to his palm. Frank's breath hitched, and I felt him tremble against me. It is real, I said, meeting his eyes. Everything you've been feeling, everything you've been wanting. I've been feeling it too. I've been lying awake thinking about you, wondering what it would be like to fall asleep in your arms instead of alone in my room. I've been imagining what it would be like to kiss you goodnight instead of just saying it from across the living room. Frank's thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I felt my knees go weak. I love you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I love your terrible jokes and the way you sing off-key in the shower. I love how passionate you get about your students, how you worry about them like they're your own kids. I love the way you make me feel like I'm home, like I've finally found where I belong. I love you too, I whispered, the words feeling like both a revelation and a homecoming. I love how you take care of everything and everyone around you. I love your laugh and the way you hum while you cook. I love that you see the best in people, even when they can't see it in themselves. We stood there in the hallway, foreheads touching, breathing each other's air, the weight of months of unspoken longing finally lifting from our shoulders. Amelia wound between our legs, purring loudly, as if she knew her work here was done. So what happens now? Frank asked, his voice barely audible. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. Now we stop being afraid, I said. Now we see what we can build together. The next morning, I wake up in my own bed, but everything feels different. The apartment hasn't changed, but the weight of last night's confessions hangs in the air like morning mist, transforming familiar spaces into something entirely new. I can hear Frank moving around in the kitchen, the familiar sounds of our routine, but now they carry different meaning. When I emerge from my room, Frank is standing at the counter with 2 mugs of coffee, his hair still messy from sleep. He looks up when he sees me, and there's a moment of uncertainty in his eyes, like he's wondering if last night was real or just a dream we both shared. "Good morning," he says softly, offering me my usual mug. Our fingers brush as I take it, and neither of us pulls away this time. "Good morning," I reply, studying his face. In the daylight, without the vulnerability of darkness to hide behind, we're both a little shy. "So, that really happened?" Frank's cheeks flush slightly. "It did." He pauses, then adds with a small smile, "I should probably stop talking to your cat about my feelings now." I laugh, some of the tension breaking. "I don't know. She's been a pretty good therapist for you." As if summoned by our conversation, Amelia appears from nowhere, weaving between our legs with obvious satisfaction. Frank reaches down to scratch behind her ears, and she purrs loudly, looking up at both of us with what I swear is a smug expression. "I think she's taking credit," Frank observes. "She should," I say, surprising myself with how easily the words come. If she hadn't been such a good listener, we might have gone on pretending forever. Frank straightens, meeting my eyes. "Are you okay with this? With us trying?" The question hangs between us, loaded with all the practical concerns we haven't addressed yet. We still have to live together, share this space, navigate the shift from friendship to something more. But looking at him now, remembering the way he said my name last night, the way he looked at me like I was something precious, I realize the fear feels manageable. I'm terrified, I admit. But I'm more terrified of not trying. Relief floods Frank's expression. "Me too." We spend the morning moving carefully around each other, testing the boundaries of this new dynamic. When Frank passes behind me to reach for something in the cabinet, his hand briefly touches my shoulder. When I hand him his plate at breakfast, our fingers linger together a moment longer than necessary. Small touches, tentative and sweet, like we're learning a new language. "I keep thinking about what you said," I tell him as we sit at our small dining table. "About falling for me in the second month. I wish I'd been braver then." Frank shakes his head. "I wasn't ready then. I don't think either of us was. Maybe we needed those months of friendship first, of building trust. Building trust by talking to my cat about your feelings? Hey, it worked, didn't it?" I reach across the table and take his hand, marveling at how natural it feels. It did. That afternoon, we established new routines without really discussing them. Frank still makes coffee, but now he brings it to wherever I'm grading papers, pressing a quick kiss to the top of my head before retreating to give me space. I still handle dinner, but Frank hovers nearby, stealing tastes and making me laugh with stories from the clinic. The first time he kisses me properly, we're washing dishes together, and I'm drying a plate when he turns to me with soap bubbles still on his hands. The kiss is gentle, questioning, and when I kiss him back, I feel months of careful restraint finally dissolving. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he whispers against my lips. "So have I." I whisper back, and the admission feels like another small miracle. That evening, we're on the couch for our usual movie night, but everything is different. Frank's arm is around me, and I'm tucked against his side, Amelia curled contentedly on his lap. The movie plays, but neither of us is really watching. We're too busy marveling at this new permission to touch, to be close, to stop pretending we're just friends. "What happens now?" I ask during a quiet moment. Frank's hand finds mine, intertwining our fingers. "I don't know. We figure it out as we go. What if we mess this up? Then we talk about it. We fix it. We don't run away." His voice is steady, sure. "I'm not going anywhere, Tyler. Are you?" I look around our apartment, at the life we've built together without even realizing it. The shared books on the shelves, the photos from our Sunday grocery runs, the comfortable familiarity of our space. Adding romance to this foundation doesn't feel like a risk anymore. It feels like coming home. "No," I say, squeezing his hand. "I'm not going anywhere." Amelia stretches, repositioning herself so she's draped across both our laps, a living bridge between us. She looks up at us with those knowing green eyes, and I swear she's smiling. "Thank you," I tell her seriously, "for being such a good wingman." She purrs in response, and Frank laughs, the sound warm and free. "I love you," he says, and this time it's meant for me, not whispered to a cat in the darkness. "I love you too," I reply, and the words feel like a promise, like the beginning of something beautiful we're finally brave enough to build together.